But good morning, everyone. Dajo, hello, and that is how we say hello in our language. I am Lipan Apache, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Ed, for inviting me to participate. It's still morning in California, right? So say good morning. And so I'm very honored to be in this space with you, with leaders and change makers who care deeply about the future of Indigenous communities. And I want to just really elevate Ed and his team for working towards the goal of giving this space to Indigenous people and Indigenous voices that have been often overlooked and underserved. And so thank you, Ed. So today I want to talk about something that has shaped my entire career, and that is the connection between representation, connectivity, and economic development. There, visibility, engagement, community, and digital sovereignty. And we can leave it here for a minute. So yeah, I wanted to talk about the connection, right? Because representation, connectivity, economic development, and how these three forces really, and focuses together can transform the opportunities for Native nations, Indigenous people. I also want to share my own journey that led me to create IndigiTech and how digital infrastructure is becoming one of the most important tools for sovereignty and economic growth, especially in the Indigenous community. And so, you know, as Ed said, I have been with AT&T, and that's how Ed and our paths have crossed, even though I was in Texas and in California. You know, we both participated in employee groups, and my apologies, have not been available for the beginning of this summit, so I'm not sure how if employee groups have been brought up. But if you don't know what an employee group is, many companies have them. Ours at AT&T are a little bit unique. They're set up as nonprofits. So can function as a separate entity, as a nonprofit, and raise funds. However, they are also an employee group of AT&T. And you know, the goal there is to support the company's goals, but also to support the communities that we represent. And so I believe Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, you were active in Hacemo, the Latin American or Hispanic employee group. And I was a member of that one, and very active, of course, in the Native American employee group, what we'll refer to as ICAE. You know, I am a proud Lipan Apache woman, and I've spent 25 years inside corporate America before stepping into the journey I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, which is the full-time entrepreneurship with some other wonderful Native leaders with a common goal. But as I served in roles across corporate, social responsibility, business solutions, employee engagement, as I mentioned, I think my favorite hat that I wore at AT&T was the National President of the Intertribal Council of AT&T Employees, or ICAE. And I was the leader for 4 years. I did have other roles before I became the national leader. But that experience has shaped the experience at AT&T together, even my roles and responsibilities, and then the role that I think my most important role and favorite role, as I said, really helped shape how I see representation and how I understand the gaps in digital access, and why I believe so strongly in building solutions that are created by Native people for Native people. And I'll use Native and Indigenous interchangeably, but we all know we are talking about the same group of people, right? The original peoples of this land of North America and even South America, and Mexico as well, Central America. So before I get into the 4 E's, you know, why this conversation matters is to elaborate a little bit more. When we talk about the representation and really talk about access, right? It's not just digital access. It's access to opportunities, access to influence, access to decisions that impact our communities, and not just the Native community, there's many underserved rural communities. And one of the things that has become kind of a tagline for IndigiTech and is my work that I'm doing outside of AT&T is that, connectivity is no longer a luxury, right? Remember when we had dial-up and then DSL and connectivity, right? Not everybody had it. So we moved to this digital age, this digital world that we live in. Really, connectivity is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. It's a necessity for us to thrive. Just in our everyday life, but because of rural communities and the reservations and tribal lands where there's not a lot of connectivity, there's still a lot of areas that don't have connectivity. And then you get into devices as well, right? They may be able to have connectivity by going somewhere and having free Wi-Fi, but I've seen people using their phone for everything from homework to applying for jobs and residence. We get used to our phone, right? There's nothing like having a laptop and a bigger screen to do the quality work that's needed. And so I wanted just to talk about that because it's really, I really feel passionate about it, is that digital access, it really needs to be available for all so that we all have opportunities for success. In representation, I'll switch back to representation. Representation isn't alone, alone that's not enough. For our nations to thrive, we also need that equity, right? That digital equity, the access, the infrastructure, and economic power. These elements are all connected. You can't build economic development without representation. And you can't build representation without strengthening the systems that support our people. And my 4 E's that I developed at ICAE in my leadership, and I'm carrying those 4 E's with me as I leave, and I think they're important, and maybe into some of the work that you all are doing in your communities or in Indigenous communities or Hispanic communities. I believe that these 4 E's can be tailored to different goals and different initiatives. And so first is to educate, right? So at ICAE for us, it was educating about Native Americans. And in Texas is, for, I think until probably the last 5 or 6 years, a lot of people at AT&T didn't even know we had a Native American employee group. And so, we did some surveys within our own membership and with the other employee groups, and we found that people really wanted to know about Native Americans and didn't know a whole lot. And so we felt education was important about Native Americans, and we can't speak for all. There's over 500 nations in the United States. But we can talk more in general and just giving that visibility. That's the next E, is to elevate Native voices, elevate Native stories. And we did that with some of the things that Ed talked about at the beginning, the Did You Know series, the Tribal Talk series. The Did You Know series is little nuggets of knowledge, 2-minute videos, and I think maybe Ed can send some of those out later after the summit. But there's just little nuggets of knowledge, just quick hits, 2-3 minutes or less, just talking about different topics that people may not have known about that either affects the Native community or just, contributors that were Native Americans to this community or to this country. And then engagement, right? We wanted the third E was engagement, and we really wanted to engage other employee groups, our corporate leaders, our community, and then businesses, Native-owned businesses. So that's part of what we did with the powwow, was bring the community together, bring the corporate leaders together, bring the community together, and then Native businesses and organizations from North Texas and from Oklahoma and across the country to participate in this powwow at our headquarters at AT&T. So that was the engagement part. The last one is empowering, and my goal has always been and will continue to be even beyond now that I've retired AT&T is to empower the next generation of Indigenous leaders. And that can be done in many ways, of course, tailored at AT&T, getting new hires involved into the employee group. But again, I really believe that these 4 E's can be applied to whatever your goal is, whatever your company, whatever your organization is doing, at least maybe even a couple of them, right? Sometimes it begins with education, so that people know who you are, what you're about, what your organization is trying to do, and then move on from there. But I wanted to just talk about the 4 E's because they have been pillars for us at ICAE, and they continue to be help me in my new journey outside of the corporate world. And so representation for me goes far beyond having a seat at the table. It means ensuring Native voices are shaping policies, designing solutions, leading conversations, and driving innovation, not just being included as an afterthought. And Ed mentioned I was in Seattle. It was a full week, and that was actually, there was powwow aspect there, some in the evenings, but it was the National Conference of American Indians the whole week. And so it is set up as, just like our Congress. I mean, Congress, there is different regions, and we caucus. I represent my tribe in the South Plains region, and so we had caucus meetings of 2 or 3 days in a row, and talking about resolutions that we wanted to pass within the American Indian Congress, and then we had elections, and we had workshops, and similar to the summit today, different ideas, right? Different people who want to be change makers, and so there was a whole menu of different workshops there. But then an organization like the National Congress of American Indians, that is absolutely an opportunity to have something beyond the seat at the table. They are based in DC. They work directly with legislators. We did have some legislators that came in and talked from Washington State, because that's where we were holding the conference, but we also had some from DC that came in virtually as I am today. So it was a very important conference, and I think anytime we can all get together and have those conversations on what we're doing to either make change in the Native community or Indigenous communities, or how to uplift the communities, are important. So again, kudos to Ed and the team for this summit today. But as far as its representation, we can go beyond that, right? And when Indigenous leaders rise, our entire community rises with us. The representation is being visible, being heard, and having that authority to make meaningful decisions. And so I'm going to talk a little bit, you can leave that slide up, but I'm going to talk a little bit about my leadership journey. I touched on it already, but I don't want to spend too much more time on about AT&T, but I did start up as a call center representative, moved across different divisions. And over the years, what I saw, again, was the lack of Indigenous representation, especially in leadership roles. So that's what took us to the 4 E's. And so serving in that role, again, was very meaningful. And so as far as the economic development, it requires infrastructure. As Native nations, we know economic development is more than just revenue. It's healthcare access, it's education, it's workforce readiness, it's enterprise expansion and future stability. Many of our tribes focus on the 7 generations, and so we always are thinking of the next 7 generations. I'm someone's 7th generation, right? You all are someone's 7th generation, and so what did our ancestors do to try and prepare? And so I feel it is our responsibility, even in tribal nations, Indigenous nations, Hispanic communities, African American communities, it is our responsibility to focus on the next generation. And so we take that very seriously in our community, and our tribe is focusing on planning ahead for my daughter, my daughter's kids, and grandkids and great-grandkids, right? Someday our seventh generation will be here, hopefully thriving even more. And so that is important. And so when you talk about economic development, we talk about today, but we also talk about the future stability of our nation. And so all of these depend on the infrastructure. And today, the most critical form of infrastructure is connectivity. That is my belief in this digital world, right? We live in, we've got AI, we've got all kinds of connectivity, but then we have issues in the rural areas. So without that strong connectivity, tribal communities are left behind in telehealth, remote work, digital learning, emergency services, and business development. That is why digital equity is economic development or economic equity, right? Because digital equity equals economic equity. And so there's our logo. As I left AT&T in September, knowing that I had already had a plan and a vision with a couple of my colleagues external from AT&T that worked, some work in telecom are actually our vendors and still work alongside AT&T, but others who just are very active and passionate in the community and have seen, because of the roles that they play in their tribe or in their community, knowing that there is a lack of equity. There's inequality right now in some of the nations. And so, there was a lot of conversations around it, but we decided that, when I retired, our goal was going to be the end of the year, but then we realized there was some sense of urgency, and then there was other things going on outside within my family that just made more sense to retire in September. And I'll get into some of the deadlines of why this is important for Indian country and for our Native nations. But all of that, right, the digital equity equaling economic equity, the things that I've seen at AT&T, just the work that all the employee groups do with AT&T, I still feel that there's more to do. There's only so much you can do as an employee group. You can help with this laptop distributions. You can go and help do digital literacy classes and things, but really getting down to helping those tribes that have maybe some opportunity for funding and connectivity to build their own network. That is what's going to really, I believe, propel our nations and our tribes to have that economic equity. And so with this understanding led me to create IndigiTech along with 4 other natives who are very active in the community. And so we created IndigiTech. As Ed had mentioned before, it is a native-owned technology company focused on advancing digital sovereignty for tribal nations. It is a division of Teltech. Teltech has been around for 26 years. It was founded by Lisa Hanlon. She's our chairwoman today. She is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, and she founded this company 26 years ago. So she's always had connections with tribes and trying to help, especially tribes in Alaska and Pueblos. And she's had some success even with other indigenous communities in South America and other regions. But as we progress and as there's been an urgent need to really connect with tribes, she decided it was best to have a division that was focused, really laser focused on indigenous communities. And the reason why is because there's something called 2.5 gigahertz spectrum. And the FCC in 2020 allowed tribes to apply for this spectrum that could be used for fixed wireless and for other ways to support connectivity. It can work in tandem with fiber, and so of course everyone wants fiber, but this 2.5 gigahertz spectrum is very valuable and can help tribes connect. There are, of course, 3 or 4 of the big companies, right? Besides AT&T, they all have different spectrums that they use. So without going too technical into all of that, this spectrum can help tribes build their own network where they can become providers instead of subscribers. And that would be definitely a big boost to economic development. They could, of course, provide services, connectivity, broadband services or connectivity services to their tribal citizens, but also to the surrounding area around them. And so this really gives them that digital sovereignty. So the reason why it's so urgent and why we have just propelled into this, and we've already met with about 15 different tribes just in September, is because there's a deadline. The tribes that were awarded this 2.5 spectrum, many of them, actually it's 128 of them, their deadline is October 2026 to build the network, or to at least be at a certain percentage built, or they lose that spectrum. It defaults back to the FCC, and then it's up for auction for any other company to come in and utilize that. So there's this great, urgency in educating the tribes that have this spectrum awarded, and some of them have received funding for it as well. If they haven't received funding, we can connect them to other companies that can help them get funding. But that is our focus right now, is the 2.5 spectrum. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you connect with me on Facebook, you'll see probably we've already been talking about it, but you'll see more and more about that. And there's a sense of urgency. So I really wanted to make sure to put that out there. If any of you are attending this summit today and you are a citizen of a nation, or and you're not quite sure, if you want to know more, reach out to me. Ed can provide my information. We can at least let you know if your nation, if your tribe is part of those 320 tribes that receive the spectrum, and make sure that at least your tribe is educated and knows the deadline. Whether you go with IndigiTech or not to help you build that network, we just want to make sure that it's utilized and the tribes have that opportunity for that economic equity. And so our mission, I'm talking about 2.5 spectrum, and I'm focused on that, but overall, we have other solutions and other opportunities to help tribes beyond the 2.5 spectrum. There are tribes who didn't get the 2.5 spectrum. We can still help them build a network. We can still do feasibility studies and help them with that, with their journey to digital access. So our mission is simple, as you can see or heard. It's really to help tribes build and own and manage the digital systems that support their communities. We provide help with technology solutions, connectivity, education around infrastructure, and we don't want to just connect and leave, right? We want to help them with their economic development. We can train some of their citizens to become the technicians, so that they can truly manage and install and support their network. And so we will provide the technology solutions as well as the education. We'll help them with any marketing that they may need to do if they're going to provide services outside of their nation. We can help with that too. And so everything we do is grounded in the belief that our tribes are sovereign and they need to have that digital sovereignty as well. Moving forward together, your representation and connectivity equals sovereignty. As I was talking about the spectrum, it's going to give them that sovereignty, reduce their dependency on large providers, and it's one of the most powerful economic assets that the tribe can hold today. It has value. And so when we combine representation Indigenous people leading, advocating, and shaping decisions with connectivity, the digital tools and infrastructure our communities need, we create something incredibly powerful, right? Again, economic sovereignty. I can't say that enough for our tribe. And this is how we build long-term strength for our tribes and for our Indigenous communities. And so I can't really see my slides. Let me jump over. I'm having a little bit of, okay. And so how we're gonna move forward together is to lead with purpose, advocate boldly, build for future generations, and empower Indigenous voices. Now, all of these four bullets here, or arrows here, this is something that IndigiTech, right, is going to do. Lead with purpose, advocate, build, and empower. But there's opportunity for others to be involved. Again, if it's your tribe or you have a connection to a tribal nation, if you want to connect them with us, we can definitely help them. But overall, together, what Ed is doing and this organization and having these types of events where we can come together and learn from each other, that also is moving forward together. And so
the Intertribal Council of AT&T Employees, ICAE, aims to support AT&T's mission to bridge the digital divide and positively impact our communities. Partnering long-term with Texas Native Health, we recognize their crucial role in the Native American community and saw them as an ideal fit for an AT&T Connected Learning Center to expand digital access, education, and opportunity. This center bridges the digital divide by offering computers, high-speed internet, and digital literacy programs in a culturally supportive space, empowering elders, youth, and families to gain skills and confidence in today's digital world. As the first employee group to formally nominate a Connected Learning Center, we submitted our nomination in August 2024, with official selection in November. The center features 15 desktop computers, 3 years of fiber connectivity, and a $50,000 AT&T gift. We have actively supported this initiative from nomination to the upcoming June 30th, 2025 ribbon cutting ceremony. For us, this is just the beginning. The center is a vibrant hub where community members feel supported and empowered. ICAE members volunteer regularly, strengthening the bond between AT&T and the community. Success is clear. Our nomination was up against 59 others and was chosen to be one of the 25 Connected Learning Centers to open in 2025. Our leadership and engagement in the role of ambassadors is to navigate the implementation of the center between the company and Texas Native Health. The center aligns perfectly with AT&T's commitment to inclusion and digital equity. This initiative has taught our ICAE leadership that true impact comes from partnership and listening. We're proud to stand with Texas Native Health and the community as ambassadors for AT&T's values. Our collaboration continues with a back-to-school event on July 26, where we will distribute 100 laptops and 250 backpacks filled with school supplies to local kids, helping to further bridge the digital divide. With the ribbon cutting just days away, the Connected Learning Center at Texas Native Health marks the start of a lasting partnership, one where technology, community, and opportunity come together. At AT&T and ICAE, we're just getting started, and we invite you to join us on this journey because when we connect, everything changes.